Hello World Civilizations class, this is Mr. Lassiter again, and today we're going to be talking about the religion of Islam, the second largest religion in the world, which has about a little over 2 billion followers, and is extremely important to understanding our world today, and of course understanding world history. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's look at our video goals. Questions to consider: who was Muhammad, and what is his role in Islam? What are the roots of the Islamic faith? And then what are some of the basic beliefs of Islam? And that's kind of what we're looking at today. Our vocabulary, our list is pretty extensive today. Islam, Muslim, Muhammad, Mecca, Medina, the Quran, the Kaaba, the 5 pillars, and you must know all 5 at the end of this video, Mosque, and Hajj. Go back and rewind if you need to hear those pronounced again. So let's get started. What is Islam and who is a Muslim? These are some of the things that might seem a little confusing. We have 2 different words here. Christianity, you have the religion of Christianity, and people who practice it are Christians. We have the religion of Judaism, people who practice it are Jews. So why do we have these 2 different terms? Well, basically it comes from the language of Arabic. Islam is used in reference to the religion itself. It means submission in Arabic. Muslim is used in reference to people who practice the religion of Islam. And it basically means one who submits in Arabic. So a Muslim is one who submits to God or Allah. And Islam is the act of submission. Therefore, it's the religion. Oftentimes we think about what are the symbols for a religion, and the crescent and star pictured here have become associated with Islam, mostly beginning in the 20th century due to the connection with the Ottoman Empire, which was a large Turkish and Muslim empire. So let's get started with some of these roots of Islam by talking about the guy we left off with in our last video, the Prophet Muhammad. And you might see various spellings of his name, and that's because it has been, when it's translated or transliterated from Arabic to English, it can be spelled a number of ways. So let's get started. He was a Quraysh caravan trader from Mecca, which is a city that is currently in Saudi Arabia, but is located on the Arabian Peninsula. He was born about the year 570 CE. And he receives his first revelation from God in about the year 610 CE. Muslims believe he receives this revelation, which I'll talk about more, and that he starts to share this with some of his friends and family, and they believe what he says, and he begins to gain some followers in Mecca over about the next 12 years. But his followers and himself and Muhammad himself are forced to leave Mecca. They are rejected by the pagans there, these polytheists in Mecca, and they're forced to leave the city in the year 622. And we'll talk about this in a minute as well. You see here on this slide this kind of script representation of the name of Muhammad. And the reason why I have that instead of an image of him is because it is forbidden in Islam to make any image of God or Muhammad, the Prophet. And we're going to respect that belief in our classroom. So this is very different from, say, the religion of Christianity, which has many different images of God and Jesus and the saints. And we talked about some of that with iconography in Byzantine religion. In Mr. Guilford's video the other day. So getting back to our subject at hand, revelation, the revelations of Muhammad, which make up the Quran, or the Holy Book of Islam. Muslims believe that what is in the Quran is the unchanging word of God, given to the Prophet Muhammad by the angel Gabriel. What this means is that they do not believe that Muhammad wrote this himself, or composed this himself, but that actually this was handed down by Gabriel to him, and that its author is God himself. In this Quran, we have the revelations of Muhammad collected and organized into about 114 different surahs or chapters. And they're organized from longest to shortest. And they were not written down originally. The Quran was originally handed down orally, and it was written down years after Muhammad's death to uh, preserve what was revealed to him. And it was written and preserved in Arabic, the language that was believed to be handed down to Muhammad in. So therefore, Arabic itself has kind of a holy place in Islam. I told you a moment ago that Muhammad and his followers were forced to leave Mecca in 622. So where did they go? Well, they migrated to a place called Medina. It was a city north of Mecca. And in Medina, they are welcomed, and the religion of Islam spreads further. This migration from Mecca to Medina in 622 marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar and is called the Hijra, or Hijra. And this is the kind of marking of year one of the Muslim calendar. From Medina, Islam will spread throughout Arabia and even back to Mecca. And the spread of Islam and the beginning of the Islamic kingdoms is what we're going to talk about in tomorrow's video. So let's continue with Mecca, the center of the Islamic world. And for Muslims, Mecca is actually believed to be the center of the world in general. At the center of Mecca, and the center of this world, is the Kaaba, which is a cubical shrine located in Mecca that is reclaimed by Muhammad and his followers. It's the most sacred place in the world to Muslims, and Muslims pray facing Mecca and the Kaaba itself from wherever they are in the world. Once in a lifetime, they must also complete a pilgrimage to Mecca and to the Kaaba in order to pray, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. A little bit more history on the Kaaba, though, which you see pictured here, is that in its original form, which was not how it appears today, it was believed to be built by the prophet Abraham as the first place to worship the one true God for all of humanity. And over time, it became taken over by pagans in Mecca and housed idols and statues of the many gods of the Quraysh. And when Muhammad returns to Mecca, he destroys those and restores it to its original purpose, which is being the center of worship of the one true God. We've talked a lot about practice, so this brings us to the 5 pillars of Islam. Islam has 5 primary obligations, or pillars of faith, that each Muslim must fulfill in his or her lifetime. And so that's what we're going to talk about here. Let's get started. First, the Shahada, the profession of faith. All Muslims must make this profession of faith in what they believe. It's almost like the creed we talked about with Christianity. And that is that there is no God but God, Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of God. And that profession of faith is taken by Muslims to prove that they believe in everything taught by Islam. The second pillar, Salah, or prayer, is undertaken 5 times daily by Muslims, 5 times throughout the day. And this prayer can be done in a mosque or wherever you are in the world, but it is done facing the Kaaba in Mecca. Mosques, a little break from our 5 pillars here. A mosque is a place of worship for Muslims. They serve as places where they come together for prayer, as well as centers for information, education, and fellowship. And you can see by these images that they're gorgeous buildings. Oftentimes have these tall minarets where calls to prayer are made from, but they can take many different forms. For example, domed or more kind of square rectangular buildings. And that kind of reflects the many different cultures of Islam, including Arabic or Kurdish or Turkish or Indian or Pakistani, or North African or Spanish. So we have a lot of different cultural influences with Islam. But you can see they are gorgeous. They have many geometric designs you see with the stained glass windows or on the ceilings and floors. And that is pretty unique because there are no images of God or Muhammad, as we mentioned earlier, in Islam. So there are other types of art that we would not see maybe in Christian churches or what have you. Let's get back to our pillars and our third pillar of Islam, which is zakah, or almsgiving. All Muslims are commanded to give what they can to the poor. Basically, this might take a form of giving a portion of one's yearly wages to charity. The fourth pillar of Islam is Saum, or fasting during the month of Ramadan. Ramadan is the holiest month in the Muslim calendar, which you see here. The Muslim calendar is a lunar calendar, so it's actually 10 to 12 days shorter than the standard 365 and 1/4 day calendar that we follow. But the month of Ramadan being the holiest month, you see this year fell across June and July of 2014. And during this month, Muslims are commanded to fast from sunup to sundown. And the last pillar of Islam is the Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca. And here you see the largest mosque in the world, and in the center of that mosque, the Kaaba itself. The Hajj takes place over a little over a week, and it's a process of purification and ritual prayer with millions of Muslims who come to the Kaaba to worship every year. And this is to be done at least once in a lifetime if one is able. Now, if one is too sick or too infirm or does not have the financial means to make that pilgrimage to Mecca, there are kind of workarounds to not having to perform this. But if one is able, then they should complete this Hajj to Mecca if they are a Muslim. So let's recap our 5 pillars. The profession of faith, prayer 5 times daily facing Mecca, almsgiving, or giving to the less fortunate, fasting during the holy month of Ramadan, and the Hajj, making a pilgrimage to Mecca. And those are the main practices of Islam. We'll talk more about the beliefs of Islam tomorrow as we read some selections from the Quran. So take a look at our goals for today. Make sure to get these vocabulary terms: Islam, Muslim, Muhammad, Mecca, Medina, the Quran, the Kaaba, the 5 pillars, mosque, and Hajj. That's all for this evening. Come ready to learn a little bit more in class tomorrow. Have a good night, and tomorrow we're going to be learning about the spread of Islam and the Islamic caliphates. Have a good night.